Hi Year 10s. We're going to talk today about finding the equations of lines. So we've talked about the two different types of equations of lines. There's slope-intercept form or gradient-intercept form, and there's general form. But if we're given information now, how can we go from that information to the equation of the line? So you know how before we had, for example, if we'd have y equals 2x plus 3, you could say from that 2 is the slope and 3 is the y-intercept. Now we want to know, if I'm given the y-intercept and given the slope, how do I get to the equation? Or even if I'm given a point and I'm given the slope, how can I get to the equation? Or what if I'm given 2 points? How do I get to the equation? There's lots of different ways we can just write the equation, and so instead of going that way, we're going that way. So if a straight line has a gradient or slope of m and passes through AB, it has this equation. Now, why? Well, you remember that the slope formula is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now that's saying we're finding the slope of 2 points. So for example, the point x1, y1, and x2, y2. And you should recall that. So if I have a slope and I have 2 points, I have to find the slope and I have 2 points. So maybe I've got the point 2, 3, and I've got the point 3, 4. Well, I could say that this point is x1, y1, and this point is x2, y2, which means x1 is equal to 2, y1 is equal to 3, and the one below, x2 is equal to 3 and y2 is equal to 4. And I just substituted that into the formula and find slope. But when we're being given just the gradient and a point, we can just keep the general form of these first two coordinates, the general form of the y-coordinate and the general form of the x-coordinate. Use the specific point we've been given and then put the slope. And then once we've done that, we can rearrange the equation to slope-intercept form or to general form. Now that probably doesn't make much sense at the moment, so we're going to do an example to show you how this works in practice. So I'm trying to find the equation of a line in slope-intercept form that goes through 5, negative 2 and has a slope of 3. So how would I do that? Well, I'm going to use the equation I saw on the previous page, that I'm going to use the fact that y take b over x take a is equal to m. Now m is the slope, a and b are the point, so a and b are 5 and 2. So all we have to do now is substitute in the values we've got. So we need to substitute in the point. So a is 5 and b is negative 2, so I'm going to go y minus 2 over x minus 5, and that's going to equal the slope, which is equal to 3. So now I can simplify that a little bit because I want to get into slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus c form. So I want to get into that form, so I'm going to do y plus 2 over x minus 5 is equal to 3. Then I'm going to rearrange. Now remember, when we rearrange, if we've got a fraction over next to a fraction or equal to another fraction, we can just cross multiply. And when we cross multiply, that tells us that AD is equal to BC. So we do A times D is equal to B times C. So in this case, we've really got 3 over 1. So 1 times, we'd multiply these two together, normally as a fraction, but 1 times y plus 2 is just going to equal y plus 2. And then that's going to equal this one times by that one. So that's going to equal 3 times x take 5. And so if we then expand that, we're going to get y plus 2 equals 3x minus 15. And then we need to rearrange and get it into y equals mx plus c form. So we've got the y on the left-hand side, that's good. and we've got the x on the right hand side, so we just need to get rid of this positive 2. How do we get rid of positive 2? We take 2 from both sides. You don't have to write that, but you might want to write a take 2 there so you remember. Take 2 from both sides. So we're going to get y is equal to 3x minus 17. And that's the equation of our line in slope-intercept form. Now there's different methods of doing that, so that's one method of doing it, but there are different methods. Now find the equation of a line in slope-intercept form that passes through a13 and b negative 25. This is a slightly different question. Why is it different? Because we've been given 2 points. So in the previous one we were given a point and a slope, so that's one version of the question. Another version is that we can just be given the slope, or we can just be given, not the slope, we can just be given 2 points. Because from 2 points we can find the slope. So remember, we want to get into the form y equals mx plus c. We're still trying to get it into slope-intercept form. We want to find the slope firstly, okay? So if we find the slope is equal to y2 take y1, so whatever one you want to call this, maybe you want to call that one x1, y1, you want to call that x2, y2, doesn't matter. So we're going to go y2 take y1, which is going to be 3 minus 5 over x2 minus x1, y minus 2. So it's going to give you minus 2 over 3. That's my slope. So now I can do it the same method as I did last time. I've got a slope and I've got a point. Doesn't matter which point I'm going to use. I'm going to use the point A, and that's going to equal 1, 3. So then I can use the formula that y take b over x take a equals m, which is just the slope formula, just with a general version of y and x. And I'm going to substitute in those values, so I'm going to get y minus b, so now a becomes ab, so b is 3, y minus b over x minus 1 equals negative 2 over 3. Now I'd pause the video at this point and just have a go at rearranging it. When you come back, hopefully you've cross multiplied. And so you've multiplied 3 by y take 3, and you've multiplied negative 2 by x take 1. And then you've expanded, so you get 3y take 9 equals negative 2x plus 2. Remember, when you expand, you've got to make sure you multiply it by both. So you'll get negative 2 times x and negative 2 times negative 1. Then you're going to rearrange. And you're going to get, add 9 to both sides. So add 9, and you're going to get 3y equals negative 2x. Then 2 plus 9 is 11, so plus 11. Then you have to get rid of that 3. How are we going to get rid of 3 times y? We're going to divide both sides by 3. So you're going to get y equals, and then remember you can split up this fraction into 2 fractions. So you're going to go to y equals negative 2 over 3x plus 11 on 3. Alrighty, now we're going to find the equation of a line in slope-intercept form that passes through a13 and negative 2, 5. Exactly the same question as last time, but I'm going to show you a different method. You don't need to be able to do all the different methods, but sometimes one method people like compared to another method, and so that's fine. You can just use whichever one you like. So we'd do it the start the same way, and we'd find the slope. So the slope is equal to y2 over take y1 over x2 take x1. So we're just going to do it as 3 take 5 over 1 minus 2, and we're going to get minus 2 over 3. Then we can use the fact that we're trying to get it into the form y equals mx plus c. So we know that negative 2 on 3 is actually equal to m. So we can write this as y equals negative 2 on 3x plus c. Now all we have to do is find c. How are we going to do that? We can do that by substituting in a point. Okay? So let's sub in 1, 3. If we sub in 1, 3, we're going to get 3 for y equals negative 2 over 3 times 1 for x, because remember this is x, y, plus c. And so we are going to get that 3 equals minus 2 on 3 plus c. And so if we add 2 on 3 to 3, we get c equals 3 and 2/3. And that's the answer. Alrighty? So c equals 3 and 2/3 is the answer we have to that question. And so then we can write this now as writing this in general form, in slope-intercept form. We're going to get y equals negative 2 on 3x plus 3 on 2 and 3. Now you might say that's not the same answer as I got before. It was, because we had 11 on 3 before, and that's the same as 3 and 2/3. Alrighty, that's that part.